Total Screen proudly presents their official podcast, On Screen, with your hosts, Tyson Gifford and William Roerig. Hello, everybody, and welcome to On Screen, the official podcast of the Total Screen. My name is Tyson.
My name is Will.
And today, as usual, we are going to be talking about She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, and House of the Dragon, the latest episodes of each of those shows. In addition to that, we're going to go over some news, some trailers, some stuff coming up on the horizon. And in our On Tap segment, I'm going to talk briefly about Cyberpunk Edgerunners, which I'm really enjoying. Let's kick things off with On Beat. On Beat is our news segment, and we're going to start things off with Keanu Reeves reprising his role as John Constantine in a Constantine sequel movie, which coincides with the cancellation of a reboot of the Constantine TV series that they were trying to do.
This is really surprising news. I would never thought they would make a direct sequel to the original Constantine movie.
This to me strikes me of like David Zaslav being ignorant about all of his properties, but like seeing that, you know, Keanu Reeves was in Constantine.
Right. I don't know.
We have Keanu Reeves in a property. Make a sequel to that.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
What is the property? Oh, I don't care. Just it's Keanu Reeves.
I think he just wanted to do a movie with Keanu Reeves. Right?
Pretty much.
Yeah. It's not an unwelcome thing. Constantine wasn't like the best movie ever, but like it wasn't like, I don't think it was like a bad movie either. So
I love the devil in Constantine. Yes. There's Peter Stormare.
Yes.
Who we've enjoyed in quite a few things. He was in American Gods. We loved him in that. And
also, given the amount of time that's passed between that film and this new film, and the fact they're getting Keanu Reeves back, gives them an opportunity to kind of like explore an older Constantine, maybe a more like world weary, you know, like a more weary Constantine.
Wizened.
Could be interesting. Yeah, wizened. Could be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I thought the movie was pretty good. It was kind of a real change for the character.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was very much Hollywood adaptation of comic book, which was the trend back then. Stuff like freaking Daredevil and, you know,
Jonah Hex.
Yeah, it's very much in that vein. So that's why, like, I'm kind of surprised they're making a direct sequel to it, because I kind of figured we left those types of comic book adaptations behind at this point.
A few words for you, Will.
Yeah.
David Zaslav.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm willing to bet he's about 90% of the reason this is happening. He's all, Keanu Reeves is hot. Like, what do we have that he's involved in? And they're like, well, he said he wouldn't do another Matrix movie. He's like, damn.
Yeah, damn, yeah. I thought they were trying to do another Matrix movie.
I have no idea. The last one was so bad that, like, I have no idea.
Yeah, to be honest, like, I haven't heard, like, any buzz. So, like, maybe not. Maybe they gave up on that.
Our next news story, Star Wars Rogue Squadron. Remember when that movie was announced? Patty Jenkins from Wonder Woman was going to be helming it. There was all this talk. They're finally going to remake the GameCube game.
Yeah. Remake the GameCube game, yeah. I don't think that's happening either. What's funny about this is I'm kind of like lukewarm on Patty Jenkins as a director.
Yeah, like, after Wonder Woman 84, she kind of really burnt a lot of her goodwill.
Yeah, that movie was so bad.
It's like the thing is, Wonder Woman was okay. It wasn't great, but it was okay. And then Wonder Woman 84 was just a steaming pile.
Yeah, I think like Wonder Woman gets a lot of credit for like mostly just like not shitting the bed entirely.
Pretty much.
It was an entertaining movie until like the goofy last act. And then Wonder Woman 84 was just straight up bad. So I don't know how this goes, but like a Rogue Squadron movie would have been cool. Especially like now when you have Top Gun being one of the biggest movies ever, apparently. This could have been Top Gun with Star Wars. Imagine like how much money that would have raked in for them to put this on indefinite hold. I have to say, what the hell are they doing over at Lucasfilm?
I should clarify that because we never announced what the news story was. We just started talking about the movie and then went right into reacting.
Oh, yeah.
I should state that, as you said just there, Star Wars Rogue Squadron, the movie that Patty Jenkins was working on, was put off of the release schedule. That means it's on indefinite hold. We have no idea if this is canceled forever. It had something to do in the news stories that came out about it with her schedule, apparently. Sometimes that means like, oh, they're just going to put it off and get to it later. A lot of times that just means, well, it didn't work out. That's it.
Right,
They
yeah.
didn't really give official word either way of what's happening with this. They just removed it from the release schedule.
I'm going to guess one of two things. One thing is Patty Jenkins is off of the project and they're retooling it behind the scenes, or it's canceled entirely.
Usually when this happens, it just ends up, the project just dies.
Yeah.
So there's a very good chance this is over. I think that Patty Jenkins was the reason that they were involved in this in the first place in this project. So I don't know if they're interested in enough in pursuing it without her.
With a different director, yeah.
Yeah, because it's like it was her project. It wasn't like, let's make a Star Wars Rogue Squadron movie. Who should we hire? Let's hire Patty Jenkins. It was more like, let's do something Star Wars with Patty Jenkins. How about Rogue Squadron?
Right.
It was more like that was kind of the time frame in which things happened. So I think it's probably gone. But I mean, it's not too much of a loss. It's not like we have footage or anything to know if it was any good. Like we had nothing to really be attached to it with.
Right. Yeah. I think you make a good point there. It's like I was thinking like the Solo situation where they had Lord and Miller were the original directors on that, and then they fired them and they got Ron Howard.
Yeah.
But then I remember that was like Kathleen Kennedy's pet project, so that's why that never got canceled.
Yeah, and then they immediately regretted.
Yes.
That project. Our next news story is also Star Wars related, and that is a series called The Acolyte, and they have just cast somebody that's near and dear to our hearts based on another show that we watched, and that is Manny Jacinto from The Good Place.
Yeah, played Jason. It was fantastic.
Jason Mendoza.
Yeah.
The Good Place,
For The Good Place. Yeah, love him. I don't know. This could be a cool show. Have to see more about it.
Yeah, anything that gives Manny more screen time is cool with me. I'd love to see him succeed. So hopefully this makes him an action star and then he can get a Marvel movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Our next news story, Amazon has picked up Blade Runner 2099 as a limited TV series. This is going to have Ridley Scott producing as well as Michael Green. Michael Green wrote the sequel movie Blade Runner 2049. He's going to be producing as well as Ridley Scott. Neither is going to be serving as the showrunner. That's going to be Silka Louisa, who did The Shining Girls. She's going to be the showrunner for this series. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty cool. I guess it's going to serve as, like, basically a third Blade Runner. It's a limited series, so we're getting more in this universe.
Cyberpunk's in, baby.
Yep, Cyberpunk's in. That's cool. You know, like, I enjoyed the Blade Runner movies, so yeah.
Yeah, we talked, I think it was last week about, like, there was a trailer for a new William Gibson series that was being done by the Westworld duo. Then we have this right now on Netflix. I'm going to be talking about it later in this podcast, but Cyberpunk Edgerunners, of course, you have the Cyberpunk game. There's just a lot of Cyberpunk stuff coming out. So that's cool because I like the genre. So, it all depends on how they do it. But I think the biggest story here is that this is going to be a pretty big, expensive project, I imagine. And this is Amazon's new thing with their shows is that they were kind of testing the waters with a lot of stuff, medium budget stuff before. And then they just jumped in like head first with Lord of the Rings, where they just were spending an absurd amount of money. And then now they've been picking up all these other projects. They have something they're working on with the Russo brothers. It's supposed to be like the second most expensive show of all time. And now you have a Blade Runner series. It's like, Jesus, they just decided to go like just full in. Like they're like, we're going to be like the Marvel Studios of TV shows or something. Just really expensive, just a freight train of stuff coming out. And then all we have left is some trailers to go over in the news. We're going to kick things off with Reginald the Vampire, starring everyone's favorite man in the chair, Ned himself from Spider-Man. This is a sci-fi series. So,
yeah, it's sci-fi series, so it'll be canceled like a few seasons. I like this trailer more than the first trailer because like it showed, I guess, more of the personality of what they're going for with this.
Yeah.
The first trailer made it look like the joke was Reginald was like this dopey looking vampire and then like everybody else was like CW vampires and then they were out to get him. And it's like, I like that this showed more dimension dimensions to the show.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just that.
I think it's important that something like this works as a TV series rather than like as a movie.
Yeah.
Because like this is like, imagine something like, say, The Magicians, if they had tried to do that as a movie, you know?
Right.
These quirky properties, they work because of the quirky characters, and you need time to develop those quirky characters and make them people that we're attached to, characters that we're attached to. So, I mean, I like this kind of stuff, so I'm excited for that. I think it looks good.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks decent. I'll say that.
Next, we got a trailer for Eiyuden Chronicles. This is the spiritual successor to the Suikoden series. It's been a while since we've gotten like a full trailer for this again, and
it's coming up next year, coming up soon. I remember like because I pitched into the Kickstarter for this.
Mm-hmm.
I remember thinking, gosh, 2023, that's like a long ways away. I don't know.
And the pandemic happened.
And then the pandemic happened, and then like now it's almost 2023. It's like, geez, okay, well, that time like seems like a blur now.
Time flies when you're living in the darkest timeline.
Yeah, right. Oh boy.
I like that it's doing kind of its own version of the HD 2D thing. Like it's got that kind of like dynamic lighting over like pixels and like using 3D elements mixed with pixels, similar to what HD 2D is doing. And I like that they're kind of doing that and then not adhering to like the 8-bit, 16-bit style and going more for like the 32-bit like pixel art style, because we haven't seen that yet with like a modern like remake type game, like the HD 2D style, you know? So I think that's pretty cool. And I love the Suikoden game, so it'll be fun to play this when it finally comes out. We got a trailer for the new Hellraiser movie, which is coming to Hulu. What did you think of the trailer?
It looked fantastic. My big question is this like a new story or is this like a remake of the first movie? I didn't really see much that like looked like the first movie, but it's been like literally ages since I watched that, so I have no idea.
This is I think this is new, but it's just like probably a new interpretation or a new adaptation of the source material rather than a continuation of the movies or a reboot of the movies.
Yeah, they definitely should make a continuation. Those movies got fucking horrible as it went on.
They got pretty bad.
They did. I always have like mixed feelings about remakes, especially like horror remakes, because they tend to not be anywhere as good as the movie they're like remaking. See Nightmare on Elm Street. If you were asked, like, if you want to watch the original Robert Englund, A Nightmare on Elm Street, or do you want to watch
Jackie Earle Haley?
Yeah, like, what would you pick? Like, obviously Jackie
Earle Haley. He was Rorschach in Watchmen, so.
Yeah, obviously. It's just like, I don't know. I'll probably check this out. In the trailer, like, it didn't look bad in the trailer. It did not look bad at all.
I know, it looked like Hellraiser.
Yeah, it looked like Hellraiser. But my thing is, remakes are pointless unless you're improving on the thing that you're remaking.
Or just taking a different tact, a different approach, different angle.
Yeah. Well, if you're taking an angle, well, it has to be at least like improvement or like on par with what you're remaking. Otherwise, what's the point? The original work, people are just going to say the original is superior. And, you know, you've done something completely pointless. Which is what happens very often.
I think there is a point to remaking it, even if you're not going to best it, as long as you come in at a different angle. You know, as long as you're showing a different side of the world or a different perspective, then you can do something interesting for that. And maybe just modernizing is enough. Because, I mean, Hellraiser, Clive Barker was a gay man, and a lot of what was in Hellraiser was kind of like his social commentary to like the treatment of the LGBT community.
Right, yeah.
That's changed over the years. Not necessarily as much as it should have, but it has changed. And so that itself can lead to a different perspective.
Right. Yeah, you make a good point there.
But I mean, who knows? This could be hot garbage.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows?
Yeah, until we actually see it, there's really no way of having a clear view on it. And lastly, for our trailers, we got a new trailer for the Midnight Club. This is the, what's his name? Is it Flanagan? He did House of, Haunting House and the Bly Manor show, and he's done a bunch of like limited series for Netflix that have been really well received, and this is his next entry.
Yeah, it looked cool.
It looks like it fits in that mold. But that's it for our news segment. Now we're going to move on to On Tap. What we've been watching. What we've been playing. What's on tap? On Tap is where we talk about shows or games or anything we happen to be playing or watching, but without heavy spoilers, because we have a segment for that that's different. So this is a non-spoiler version. I'm going to be talking just a little bit, very briefly, about Cyberpunk Edgerunners, which I've been watching on Netflix. I believe it's 10 episodes. It's an anime series done by Studio Trigger, heavily tied in with Cyberpunk 2077, and CD Projekt Red are heavily involved in the production of this. The music is largely the same as what's in the game. The settings, it's kind of amazing. Even just watching the trailers, I kind of knew this, but even more so with the show, where like when I was watching the trailers for the show, I'm like, oh, I know exactly where these characters are in every scene they're showing in these trailers. I'm like, I can picture walking to that location from somewhere else, like in my head, because I played Cyberpunk 2077 so much. And what's crazy about that to me is that Trigger is like a really, like almost absurd anime studio with like the way they do presentation. It's so like just off the rails that for them to be able to like hold some kind of cohesion with the already existing world of Night City from the game so that it's like recognizable where characters are, that they're going from this location, that location, and that it's actually accurate when they're doing that in a Studio Trigger anime is kind of shocking, but they do it remarkably well, which is like, if you played Cyberpunk and now you're like watching this, you feel like it's kind of like when you watch like a movie that takes place in Los Angeles. It does a really good job of representing Los Angeles when you live in Los Angeles. And you're like, oh, I know exactly where they are. Yeah. Oh, they're on this high-speed chase. Oh yeah, they went around the corner, and that's exactly where that should be. And that's, it's like that kind of like feeling is like just spot on in this anime. I guess a better example than like the movie example would be like if you lived in one of the cities that one of the GTA games was based on.
Oh, right.
And then you played that game and you're like, oh, this is my house, like, oh, this is the place where I pick up lunch, it's like, you'd kind of like, all the locations, and that's the case here. Like, it just feels that way. Cause like when you play a big open world game like that, you just kind of live in that world, like mentally. So I'm really impressed by that. But then just the story's really good. The characters are extremely likable. I actually saw somebody compare it to Cowboy Bebop in the sense that you become very quickly attached to the characters. And they're like very interesting and fun characters. And even before you get into their backstories, you're already attached to them. And that is definitely the case here. And then as it starts getting into their backstories and their stories and stuff, it just gets better. It's also interesting because it's brutal. I don't know how much Studio Trigger anime you've seen, if you've seen like Kill la Kill or things like that.
I've seen Kill la Kill. I've seen Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann. I haven't seen like all that stuff. Like
that's the main ones that you would know because that's the same director who did Cyberpunk Edgerunners.
I love Studio Trigger's style. I know like they have like this highly energetic, kinetic style to their anime, judging from what I've seen, and for what I've seen of Cyberpunk, it's no different. I just love that style.
It's a little bit restrained, which works for this kind of story.
Right.
But it's still wild and over the top like that. I posted, I said like, it's gonna be like Studio Trigger fans or whatever are gonna be like, oh, this is really restrained. And people who have never seen a Trigger anime are gonna watch us and go, whoa, this is way over the top. So it's kind of like finds like this happy balance. It's like, it's really cool. But yeah, I mean, it's really good. I think people should watch it and check it out for themselves. It has been doing really well on Netflix, and it's also spurred on renewed interest in the game. The game's been doing extremely well on like Steam in the last couple of weeks. So Cyberpunk had such an unfortunate rollout with that game just being kind of broken. I enjoyed it from day one. I happened to be playing on one of the few platforms where it wasn't a complete mess. It was still messy, but it wasn't a complete mess. And it's drastically improved since then, but I think a lot of people would probably love it if they gave it a shot, but they were probably scared off by all the news that was coming out about it, about how it ran on like PS4 and Xbox One, and that was legitimately bad. I think people would absolutely love this world though, just the whole world in general, and that ties in with the anime, because if you watch the anime, you're in that world, you're in that city, you're seeing the same landmarks, you're seeing the same places, you're seeing the same kind of stuff. Some of the activities feel even similar, like the way certain characters would do certain things, like it's like, oh yeah, that's a Night City thing, that's how the people react there, that's how people act in that city. It's fantastic. Everybody should watch it. But that's it for our On Tap segment. Now I'm going to move on to On the Horizon.
On the
On the horizon.
On the Horizons, where we talk about stuff coming up in the next couple of weeks. We're going to get through this pretty quickly here. On Sunday, September 25th, Bob's Burgers, Family Guy, The Great North, and The Simpsons, that's Fox's big animation Sunday block, is returning on Sunday, September 25th. Then also on Sunday, September 25th, The Rookie returns on ABC. That's the Nathan Fillion series where he plays a police officer.
Oh, okay.
On Tuesday, September 27th, The Munsters movie, the one done by Rob Zombie, is debuting on Netflix. Also on Tuesday, September 27th, The Rookie Feds is coming to ABC. This is a spin-off to the Rookie series. And then lastly, on Friday, September 30th, My Best Friend's Exorcism, which we covered the trailer, I think 2 weeks ago.
Yes, we
is
did.
going to be hitting Amazon Prime.
Just in time for spooky season.
Spooky season.
Yeah.
Creepy paper.
Yeah, creepy, yeah.
That's it for On the Horizon, and now we're going to move on to our final segment, Full Spoilers. This week on Full Spoilers, we're talking about She-Hulk, Attorney at Law Episode 5, Mean Green and Straight Poured Into These Jeans, as well as House of the Dragon Episode 5, which again, I forgot to grab the name of the episode, but oh well. Episode 5 of House of the Dragon. Let's start with She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, Episode 5, Mean Green and Straight Poured Into These Jeans. When we last talked about this show, you were just starting to warm up to it after being disappointed for the past episodes. How did you feel about episode 5?
And then this episode straight shits the bed. It's the worst episode of the show so far. Like, practically nothing happens. Yeah, there's the Titania lawsuit stuff, but man, it's so boring. It's like,
I still quite enjoyed the episode, but it felt like a big step down from episode 4 to me.
Yeah, it was. No lies there.
I still really liked it though, but that's the difference in our perspectives on the show as a whole, you know, that I've been enjoying it a lot more than you have.
There was no entertainment in this episode.
We had the Titania lawsuit. It was just kind of dealing with the aftermath of all of her bad dates and how that came into the lawsuit, I think.
Yeah, because the whole lawsuit hinged on if Jennifer was using the She-Hulk name before Titania trademarked it or something. Not just like claiming, but if she was actively representing herself as She-Hulk. And then that led to like her dating profile, because that's the only thing she could point to where she reasonably advertised herself as She-Hulk. So that would like technically count as her having a claim to the mark. So that's why she had to pull in all these people like she dated through the app.
All those awkward, horrible dates from the last episode.
Which I'm like, I'm not a legal expert, but I don't think that would have actually been necessary. I think all she would have had to approve is like she had an active dating account under the name She-Hulk. But whatever, it makes for more entertainment, I guess.
Well, they have to give closure on that whole fact. I thought it was kind of interesting the way they had the one guy up there that she had the successful date with, and it just kind of like turned sad, just like it
he
did
only
in the past
likes
episode.
She-Hulk.
Yeah.
He doesn't like Jennifer Walters. Like, you're not my type.
Yeah,
like
she does Tatiana Maslany does a great job as Jennifer Walters playing that character. And just that even when she's in court and has him on the stand, you can see there's like, she's kind of smiling at him. And then when he says like, you know, would you have dated her if it wasn't She-Hulk or something? And he's like, no, or something. And you can just see her kind of like hiding, being crestfallen. You can see the crestfallen behind her eyes, you know?
Right, yeah.
Which is really sad. And I think that worked in the last episode. So I like that they reestablished that here as a way to kind of understand like her mental state in that scene. So I guess the one side story they did have is that they were trying to get her some clothes.
About the drip.
Yeah.
And like the eccentric, superhero fashion designer.
Yes, who only works with top class talent. They convince him to work with She-Hulk because, you know, she's a Hulk and he's never worked on a Hulk. So you'd be able to do something new there. We didn't really get to see what clothes came from that. So that's like a kind of a storyline that's still up in the air. We have to see like where that concludes.
We don't see where that goes, but we did get an Easter egg or like a teaser at the end of the episode where it shows he has a new helmet for Matt Murdock.
Yeah, it's for his yellow suit.
Because he's like, oh, don't leave this out in the open.
Yeah.
And sets it aside that zooms in, and it's like, okay, yep.
Yeah, so apparently he did a costume for Daredevil, which implies, I think, that maybe we'll be seeing Daredevil in the next episode.
Right.
So usually that's kind of where those things lead into. Like we got her getting served at the end of the last episode.
Leading into this episode, yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of seems like it would fit there, is like that's kind of their hint into the next episode.
Again, like I'll repeat myself from last week, the concept is sound. Having the battle between She-Hulk and Titania be a legal battle instead of a physical brawl is like a fun twist on the concept that fits what the show is going for. It just needs better writing. It needs sharper comedy. I don't know what it is, but conceptually they're there, but they need like something else to make it work.
Yeah.
It's just
See, I'm quite
happening.
enjoying it though. I'm at the place where I actually do enjoy what they're doing. It's not like laugh out loud funny, like huge crazy gags funny,
right?
But it's fun.
It needs to be.
To me, it's fun. Like it doesn't have to be so funny because it's fun, you know, and that's what I want from it. So
yeah,
I'm kind of getting what I want from it.
Yeah. I mean, it's good that you're enjoying it. It's just, it's starting to bore me at this point.
We're about halfway through the season, I believe. I think there's 9 episodes, so we'll have to see if it ever picks up for you again.
Yeah.
Maybe Daredevil will do it for you.
Yeah, maybe that'll work.
And that leaves us with House of the Dragon, episode 5. We got, I think, another time skip going on here. And before we get to the end of it, we're gonna have the biggest time skip between this episode and next episode.
Oh yeah. Between this episode and next episode is the big 5-year time skip.
It's like half the cast is new.
Right. So this episode was titled We Light the Way, which is the Hightowers.
Their winter is coming.
Yeah, their winter is coming, yeah. So it's named after the Hightowers house mantra, which kind of gives you a hint as to like the contents, right?
Yeah. I mentioned last week that there is like a palpable tension being built up between the princess and her former best friend, currently queen consort. Rhaenyra and Alicent.
Yes.
That there's like a palpable tension being built up. This episode just kind of straight up set the board, I think. It straight up put them on separate sides and said, so their friendship's over now.
We kind of fast forward from last episode where like my series was like dead set that Rhaenyra was going to marry Loras Valerian?
Laenor Valerian.
Laenor Valerian, yeah, okay. Dead set marrying Laenor Valerian. So this fast forwards to when they're about to have the wedding, right? Mm-hmm. They travel to the Valerian's home by sea. By the way, Viserys is like very sick this entire episode. Like,
oh yeah. We talked about him falling apart last episode. He's just crumbling.
Yes.
He can barely like stand upright.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. We see him, he's on the ship at the beginning, right? And he's kind of like seasick. He's sick throughout the entire episode.
Mm-hmm. He's barely holding himself together. He's having to hold himself together to give like formal speeches when they do like the introduction of all the households that are coming there for the wedding and the celebrations. And he can like barely like keep himself conscious to do that. He's struggling hard. And then you have the politics stuff starts coming into play because like the queen, for example, having now kind of set her side against the princess, shows up in the colors of her house.
Well, yeah, this is
as like a kind of a declaration of war to the wedding. Shows up late in the middle of the king's speech.
We should back up and kind of like explain this because I don't believe she starts the episode with these intentions.
No.
So basically, what's going on is that from last episode, Alicent, heard rumors that Rhaenyra was fooling around with Daemon, and she confronted Rhaenyra about that, and Rhaenyra told her nothing happened. What she heard was incorrect. And she kind of like accepted that. Then at the beginning of this episode, one of the strong...
Larry's strong.
The
crippled strong son. He's having like Littlefinger vibes.
Yeah, he's trying to be Littlefinger Jr. here. Because he comes up to Alicent in the courtyard and kind of tells her about the elixir that Rhaenyra was given to take care of her problem. And we all know, like... We all know, like... Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we all know what the elixir means.
Yeah.
And so this is what's got Alicent into like thinking now that Rhaenyra lied to her and she definitely was fooling around with Damon.
So
that's got the wheels turning in her head.
Then there was a confrontation between the princess and her knight, Kristen Cole. Kristen Cole is like, let's run off together.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Who Rhaenyra is marrying, Laenor, he's gay. Like, he's not interested in her at all, really. They're just doing this for convenience. They make a deal with each other that, they're just going to do this to please their parents and the realm, and then they're going to be able to, sleep with whoever they want. And Kristen confronts Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra kind of joyfully tells him, well, it's fine because you can just be my side piece and we're cool. I talked out with Laenor and that's going to be totally cool. We could sleep together all the time. And Kristen didn't like that. He's
wants what am I, your whore?
Right? Yeah, exactly. He's like, I don't want to be your whore, he wants to be your husband or nothing.
They're playing it kind of like Kristen was the one that was wronged here and now he's feeling it's I really don't feel sympathy for Kristen in this situation.
No, I don't either.
I think he's being kind of an asshat. Yeah. And he's much worse so as the episode goes on, but
he's being a goddamn simp.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, he's when he talks to her, when he says so I'd be like your whore or something, and then he confronts her about it and says, I sacrificed my honor. I did also. It's yeah, you did that. We made a point. We talked about it last week about how long it took to get him undressed.
Yeah, right.
That whole time he could have backed away.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it takes two to tango, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. And so he feels like he's lost his honor, and that was the most important thing to him. And we know how he felt about being appointed to the Kingsguard and what that meant to him. I get that that's super important. And on one hand, I feel, yes, okay, yeah, you feel like your honor, but you did the deed. You did the deed, and what did you realistically think that was going to lead to when you did that?
And so he's talking to her you need to consider me and what this means to me and everything without ever taking a second to consider what it means to her.
Right.
So it's to me, he kind of infuriated me when he was going off on her about that.
He never kind of owns up to his end of the deal, or he never once has a moment of clarity where he says, this is actually my fault. Mm-hmm. He has a lot of guilt over it, but that's not the same thing. As owning it. It leads to this one of the most hilarious scenes in the episode is when Alicent, after learning of this news about Rhaenyra, calls Kristen Cole in. Yeah, she wants to question Kristen Cole to see if he knew anything about the potion or if he even knew anything about her and Damon. And
I thought they were going to play up the misunderstanding. Yeah. That she was talking about Damon and he was thinking that she was talking about him.
No, they don't, because he gets up and
immediately,
he immediately gets up and spills everything about him sleeping with Rhaenyra.
Which again shows all he cares about is the image of honor, because he's completely dishonored her by doing that.
Yeah, well, he cares about his honor, and he feels his honor's gone. And what he really wants in that moment is he wants her to sentence him to death so he can be free of the shame that he's feeling.
Yeah, and he's willing to, before doing that, throw her under the bus.
Yeah, again, because he doesn't care about anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
All this drama bleeds into the wedding when they actually start having the wedding ceremony. Now that Alicent knows that Rhaenyra has also been sleeping with Kristen Cole, as well as maybe Damon, we don't know. She's pissed. She is absolutely pissed. And also, she has...
Which again is her own bad. It's her own jealousy.
Also another thing informing her state of mind here, she has the scene with her father, Otto, as he's leaving King's Landing. And he tells her straight up, he's like, Rhaenyra, she comes into power, she's going to have your children killed. Their competition for the throne.
And so that's why I'm fighting, to protect my daughter that I put into this situation. Knowingly put into this situation.
Knowingly put. He's like, you're not going to be best friends with her after she becomes queen. Even if you accept it, that it's not going to happen. So, you pretty much have no choice but to fight for yourself and for Aegon. That's basically the message.
Mm-hmm. And he ends it, he says either raise Aegon to the throne or beg for the princess's mercy. That's her only options, and Neither of them's a sure thing.
Right.
With, again, selfishness, no reflection of that this is all his own fucking fault.
No, yeah, this is all his own fault, but this is Otto's mindset. This is what he genuinely believes is the best for the realm.
Mm-hmm.
So we get the scene in the wedding. Viserys notes that the queen is like late to joining the wedding, and she shows up wearing the green dress, which is the green is the high tower colors. In fact, it's the light that they light in their tower when they're raising their banners for war.
Yeah, it's a statement.
It's a statement. And we see like a more confident Alicent, you know, like a more determined than we've seen.
Yeah, we've been talking about how all the characters are kind of rational and nobody's really gone like full dark on anybody yet. It's like now we're starting to see the pieces fit into place. Like we're starting to see where the battle lines are, you know, and how things are going to unfold.
And then we get Daemon. We haven't talked about Daemon yet, and he has like one of the most memorable scenes in the episode, at the very beginning episode, because he pays his wife that he's mentioned a visit.
Yeah, it's interesting because he played it off so much as like she's this like cow, nobody would ever be interested in her. Everything. It's like turns out all that's kind of bullshit. It's just that she doesn't like him, and she won't. Yeah, you know, she
again,
won't
like
serve
all the
wifely duties
information we
for him.
got from him, it's a brilliant play on the unreliable narrator, right? Because all the information we got about her came from Daemon's mouth.
Yeah,
and Daemon is the ultimate unreliable narrator because she just hated him.
Yeah, she was unwilling to serve as his wife. He made it sound like he was rejecting his wife, and it's more that his wife was rejecting him.
Yeah, exactly. So he visits her to murder her.
Mm-hmm.
There was the line in the last episode where he begged Viserys to let him marry Rhaenyra, and Viserys said like he already has a wife. Like, what are you talking about? So he kind of like fixes that in a way, right? This is like his mindset. He leaves her on the ground crippled, and she kind of like, she hurls the insult, like, you can't finish. You never could finish. And that stops him, and then he decides to pick up the rock and smash her head in. Funny thing about that, they said in the after show, the producers notes in the book, you know, Fire and Blood, it's just mentioned that she fell off her horse and crushed her skull on a rock. It's never mentioned in the actual book why that happens or how. They said like having Daemon be behind that is an embellishment that they took for the series.
I think it's less that, and it's the book Fire and Blood is written like a history book.
Yes, it is.
It's not written like a novel. So it's not going to present the truth. It's going to present how history was recorded in Westeros.
Right.
And that's how Daemon is presenting it. That, you know, oh, she died in a tragic accident. And what the showrunner said
in the show is like everybody's just accepting that narrative too.
Yeah. But like what the showrunner said is like when he read that in the book, he said, oh, Daemon clearly killed his wife. And I'm like, that probably is exactly what George R. Martin intended.
Yeah. Like, I'm not questioning it. I'm just thought that was interesting, you know, like, again, this is how it's one of those interesting things where how like, the difference between the book, which was written as a history, and now we're getting to see these events through the character's perspective and how things shift and change with that perspective change is kind of what makes this series so interesting.
Yeah. I mean, history's never a really accurate account of what happened. It's all politics and how politics has decided to record what happened. History's written by the winners, and that they say, so it's written by the victors.
This all comes to a head, by the way, thanks to our good buddy, Kristen Cole. We should say Laenor's lover, named Joffrey, by the way. Don't be a Joffrey at a wedding.
Yeah.
Laenor and Joffrey are gossiping with each other. Laenor's talking about the arrangement that he made with Rhaenyra, and that he gets to keep seeing Joffrey and she doesn't care. And then Laenor was like, okay, well, who's her secret lover, right?
Joffrey
Joffrey pegs it as Kristen Cole. He's noticing the way Kristen Cole is kind of like laser focused on Rhaenyra. He pegs the way he's looking at her as like more than just like a concerned bodyguard.
Mm-hmm.
And then Joffrey does something that completely like
off screen. We don't know what exactly he said to him. Like he said something to him on screen, and then it cut away, and it was a bit of time passed before the deed happened.
So
So we don't know exactly what's completely set Kristen Cole off.
Here's what I understood it, though, because he walks up to Kristen Cole. He basically says to him, I know your secret. I know you slept with Rhaenyra. I have my own secrets. It's fine, but, like, if you tell anybody, you know, what you did, like, we're gonna have a problem. There's gonna be a problem. And it's kind of like, yeah, that ship already sank. So, like, that ship already sailed. So it's like, Kristen, like, I gotta believe, like, that little, like, conversation there kind of set Kristen into, like, panic mode. Oh, this guy is just gonna, like, blab it to everybody now, and I'm gonna be completely ruined. And he goes off and he kills Joffrey in, like, a very brutal manner.
Yeah, just beats his face until it's all completely caved in.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, Kristen Cole just completely selfish, becoming a character that I really just have no sympathy for anymore. It's almost like on the edge of, like, just straight up gay bashing. He just, like, destroys this guy, you know, knowing who he is. And it's fucking horrendous, you know?
It was horrendous. Again, it's a good point to say, even people like, we thought Kristen Cole was like this virtuous, the good guy, right? He's one of the good guys. It's like...
But he's just a narcissist, and his honor is what he's narcissistic about.
There are no, like, paragons of virtue in the show. You know? Everybody is self-interested.
We should talk about the Strong family, because they're kind of interesting.
They are kind of interesting. So we know, like, what is it, Lionel Strong?
He's now the new hand of the king. We'd mentioned him as being, like, a very strategic and reasonable person in past episodes. Honestly, and he still seems to be that. Yeah. Like, on the surface, at least.
Yeah, on the surface, at least. Honestly, like, yeah, I mean, it's probably a good choice. I mean, he seems to have done nothing but give good advice. So it seems like a wise decision.
But his sons, on the other hand, they're like little fingers.
Well,
they're schemers.
They're schemers.
His younger son, Larry Strong, is the one that already has manipulated Alicent Hightower. And then he has a son who's a knight, who is Harwin Breakbone Strong, who is almost, and this is what makes me question if what Lionel Strong is presenting is just on the surface. Because he gets, like, basically sent out to, like, protect the princess when everything starts happening at the wedding, when that, like, you know, beatdown started happening. But it was almost, like, presented in the strategic way. Like, oh, you know, this is your chance to get in with the princess and become her new lover kind of thing. It was weird the way it was presented. There was a lot of, like, knowing glances and stuff between the brothers, and even a bit between the father and his sons, of, like, what they were doing in that moment. Where it's just, I don't read it the same way I read it before with him. I think there's some manipulations going on, but it's under the surface. Like, it's not, he's presenting himself as being rational and unbiased, and he's not.
Right, yeah.
So I just think that family's interesting because of that. Because I don't know, I don't know if it's just this, I don't know if it's just the youngest son. Clearly the youngest son is doing shit. It's pretty fucking obvious the way he's
he's up to something. People. Like, why would he walk up and tell Alicent gossip like that?
Yeah.
With no motive. That was not just an FYI, or, like, because he's loyal to his queen or some shit. Like, come on.
Yeah. That was a manipulation. And so clearly he's doing something. And it seems obvious, like, his older brother is in on it too.
And the thing about it is, like, Alicent isn't at least yet savvy enough to know when she's being manipulated, right?
Yeah.
She's still a bit naive.
Yeah, so he's put a wedge between the princess and the queen there. Then you have, like, the next level up in that family, which is his older brother, the knight, Sir Harwin Breakbone Strong, who, like, Larry Strong's obviously up to something. Sir Harwin Breakbone Strong is almost assuredly in on it with him, but we don't have confirmation of that yet. Like, we haven't seen it outright yet, but it seems pretty obvious that he's involved in some scheme with his brother. And then the question is, does that go up to to their father, you know?
Right, yeah.
Is the father involved in that too? But they're clearly a scheming family, it seems to me, to some extent.
They're schemers.
Yes.
Schemers, trying to control their little worlds.
So we should say that we talked about poor Joffrey being butchered.
Yeah, Kristen Cole immediately runs out of that and attempts to kill himself.
He goes to the weirwood tree.
Yeah, he goes to a weirwood tree, which was nice to see a weirwood tree. Creepy face and all. He attempts to kill himself, but Alicent stops him.
Yeah, we don't get any closure on what that means yet.
Alicent has some use or interest in Kristen at this point, because it's clear that she's not going to
sell out the queen even further now, or the princess even further.
So yeah, appears because we see, like, if you watch the preview, or if we should even talk about the preview, I'll only mention this. It looks like he's still a member of the King's Guard 5 years later, which by all rights he should not be.
He killed like a lord's son.
Yeah,
you know?
He killed the lord's son, but then again, there was a King's Guard who killed his king and didn't get fired, so, you know.
Yeah, but that was at the head of a rebellion against that king, so.
Yeah.
But I've started to hate Kristen Cole as a character just because I don't like characters that pretend to be honorable when they're just fucking only care about their own vanity. That just drives me nuts. And so his character went from being a character that I liked to a character
he exposed himself.
Fuck him, you know?
Yeah, he exposed himself this episode for who he really is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go too much into like the previews for next week except for a few details. You already said one of them. The other is that this episode ends with it seemingly looking like the king was dying.
Yeah, after being like sick the entire episode, he does like the wedding, like kind of like a shotgun wedding, you know, like in the sept. After like the shit that went down, he's like, yeah, we're just getting this over with.
Poor Laner's like weeping through the wedding.
Yes,
because like his like lover was just murdered, you know?
Was just murdered, yeah. And it's a horrible situation all around. And then after he successfully gets them wed, Viserys like collapses on the floor of the sept. And I thought that was going to be it for him, but then like the preview kind of revealed he's still around 5 years later somehow.
I think it's 10 years later. They said it was a 10-year skip, and based on another character,
time skip.
Also based on another character that they showed in that trailer, there's no way it's 5 years. It's got to be 10 years because they showed Aegon.
Viserys got 10 years in the state he's in. Like, Jesus.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. But
yeah,
but they showed Aegon in the time skip trailer.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
and he's like a teenager. So there's he would be like 9 if it was a 5-year skip.
He's like, this was a time skip for last, like, wait, he's like 3 or 4 by the time of this episode.
Yeah, so like if it was a 5-year skip, he'd be like 9.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But here he's like 14, which is I think about the age that I think the princess was supposed to be when the series first started. She was supposed to be around 14 or something.
Yes.
14 or 15, something like that. But that's what we have coming up. We have a huge time skip, some splaining to do by the showrunners about how that king is still fucking alive.
Yeah, really.
It'd be a good opportunity to do like a misleading edit though. Make it look like he's still around, but he's not.
Yeah, I don't think they're
like
doing that.
he's only alive in the trailer, but like when you actually watch the show, he's like already dead. Just to kind of like trick us. But I don't think they
aged him 10 years. Like, I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah, they did a bunch of work on aging makeup on him and stuff.
Yeah.
But the next episode, it's just so anybody who's watching the show that listens to this podcast should know, a lot of the characters are going to look completely different because they're changing the cast on all the young actors, basically.
Yeah, all the young actors are getting new actors to replace them, including Rhaenyra and Alicent, which, especially I'm looking forward to new performances, but the performances of, Millie Alcock and the actress who portrays Alicent, whose name
Emily Carey,
just been great performances, exceeded my expectations for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be weird to see how that happens. Hopefully it feels somewhat seamless, but it's definitely going to feel strange,
Right. Yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else we need to cover.
I think that covers everything.
Yeah,
sure.
I think that's pretty much it. I mean, there might be some little tiny details we didn't cover, but nothing that important.
Yeah, nothing sticks out at me at the moment. I mean, and I was like pretty sure to like cover.
We got to see the first bro of Westeros again.
Who?
The first bro of Westeros, Jason Lannister.
Oh yeah, Jason Lannister. Yeah,
he'd be a complete dickhole.
Yeah, he's salty that she didn't choose him.
Yeah, made some total like fucking sexist comment. You could see both the princess and the king were both like rolling their eyes, like
yeah. Typical Lannister.
Fucking alpha beta Lannister there.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Prince of the Westeros fraternity. Jesus. It's going to be really interesting to see next week because that's the big time skip that we've been hearing about all this season was going to be coming, and now it's here. So I believe that is it for our show. So thank you everybody for listening. You can contact us on Twitter. I am at Tyson Gifford. Will is at Voxel Hero. You can check out our Facebook page, our website, thetotalscreen.com. If you go to thetotalscreen.com and open up any of the container stories for the podcast, within there you'll find all the links links to all of our social accounts, our SoundCloud page, everything else. Any other way you can get in touch with us is in there. Of course, the best way to get in touch with us is just through our personal Twitters, which again are at Tyson Gifford, at Voxel Hero. So send us any comments, good, bad, or indifferent. We'll be happy to have them. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to the OnScreen podcast, the official podcast of The Total Screen. Visit our website at thetotalscreen.com. This podcast can be found on any major podcast client, including Pocket Cast and Apple Podcast. The entire backlog of this podcast and other content can be found on our YouTube channel.